Climate change and planning our communities and our cities to be resilient is not a one expert thing, it's multifaceted. And the major problem that Nigeria is having is that as a country, we do not have a national response strategy to climate change. For quite a while now, we have been at, trying to get a national climate change commission, to see to the governance of climate change, to our national response, state level and every other level on climate change. It hasn't happened. We have other countries like Kenya and some other countries that started this move after Nigeria, and now they have a policy, and the world is taking them serious. A lot of resources in terms of assistance for adaptation and also alternative, mitigation plans are going there. Nigeria cannot be a recipient of most of these things because we don't have a strategy. Nobody just wants to push money out, just like last year when we had the flooding and the president came up with 17 billion. Up to today, some communities are still saying, so what happened to our state's share of the money? You don't throw money at problems. Sometimes back during President Obasanjo, when we had the incidents of cultism everywhere, then he came up with money to federal universities and state universities and said, go and get rid of the cultists. And now the same thing is still happening. So we have this attitude of throwing money at problems as if that will resolve it. It was generous of the president to have come up with 17 billion, but perhaps a 10 billion that is channeled through a system that is well defined, a policy that knows where we should be, what we should be doing, would have more impact, because 17 billion naira and the total loss estimate for Nigeria from that flooding is about $16.9 billion according to NEMA. So how do we start from? What's important is that we need to have a national response strategy to climate change. Climate change is not an environment problem only, it's an economic problem. Nigeria's economy is climate dependent. Climate change is a health problem. It's cross-cutting. So we need an institution, perhaps residing with the presidency, that can have an oversight, that can help us have a good overview of all these things and coordinate. Okay. What we're having presently is just not enough.
Let's look at this report again and see if we could extract some sort of understanding concerning what this warning actually means.
With last year's devastating flood still fresh in the minds of many Nigerians, the National Emergency Management Agency has again issued another warning of anticipated heavy rainfall in excess of 50 millimeters. Certain areas have now been identified as vulnerable based on alerts received from the African Center of Meteorological Applications based in Niamey, Niger Republic.
There's going to be about 50 millimeters rainfall in just 24 hours along the south coast of Nigeria, starting from Lagos to Ogun State, Waterside, to Ondo State, and all the way to the Niger Delta region of the country.
Many residents of these areas are terrified, and for good reason.
It's not enough to just issue warning. You have to also take certain actions.
Although the agency is quick to stress that a 50 millimeters rainfall within 24 hours is not likely to reproduce the disaster of 2012 that displaced over 2 million people, flash floods are expected and citizens must be prepared to take safety measures.
When you gauge it that this level of water is going beyond your ankle if you are trekking, but if you are in your car and you see that your rim is being covered, that means it is not safe for you to proceed on that journey. It's better if there is a means you can retrace your step, you do it. And if it is getting too much, it wants to swallow the car, you better do not assume. It's better for you to calm down and find safer ground to wait.
And so with the ominous weather alert expected to last for 72 hours, residents within the vulnerable areas will do well to heed the weatherman's warning with all seriousness.
All right, so there you have that. But that was the National Emergency Management Agency speaking. And so ordinarily, those who think procedurally, they think, well, if the Nigeria Meteorological Agency responds or speaks up on this, then the emergency comes and says, okay, well, in the light of this, this is how we ought to conduct ourselves. But it looks as though it's going the other way around. It's NEMA who issued this warning, and NIMET wouldn't come forward or forthcoming on this matter?
Well, it's unfortunate that the person you have invited is not here, but I might assume that perhaps NEMA and NIMET are working together on this, because NIMET is a member of the International Meteorological Agencies, so they will have direct information from the center in Niger and in other parts of the world. So perhaps let's assume that they have gotten the information and passed on to NEMA, and NEMA is taking the responsibility of informing the public, which is fair. But the problem is that this mode of information is a step, but it's not comprehensive, it's not enough. There are many people who will not hear this, and not even every news channels, carried this piece of information. So you might find a situation where most people are not even aware. So what we are saying is not just to give bits and pieces of information now and then. We should have a system where, okay, at the beginning of the year, you have given us the prediction. First, you want to look at our early warning system in Nigeria. Does it give at least up to the hour, up to the day prediction? You can't just tell us sometime in June it's going to rain. Then do we become inactive the whole of June just because it might rain on a particular day and we'll have problem? So if we have what is close to as precise as possible, okay, tomorrow or next there might be this every day. So then parents could start to know, oh, perhaps these 2 days I might need to stay at home with my kids to ensure they are out of danger. Whatever it is that people will do at their individual level, at community level, it is that kind of precise information that can help them to plan. And besides, mostly when we tell communities that you need to move to where? It's not everybody that can move. So what kind of facilities do we start? Do we say, for instance, in making our cities, our communities more resilient, we're going to make the community schools such that whenever it is flooding, if the heavens don't tear up, they are not likely to be flooded. Then when you tell people move, they have an idea of where to move in within their, their reach. Otherwise, if you just give this information, you just create panic. And people I'm not saying it's not good to give the information, but you need to give it in a way that empowers people. They know what to do. You have people who encourage them to do what is right. Of course, some people will stay put. In the US, when Sandy came visiting, some people stayed put, and that's why you have the number of deaths, that was recorded, unfortunately. But at least many people would leave the path of danger, and you'll be able to save more lives, and perhaps, we'll have to do less condolences after the flood, because there will always be flooding. It's a global phenomenon. What we need to do is to make sure that we don't stay in the path of the flood. In Lagos, in many places in Nigeria, the problem is that we ourselves have blocked the drains, is that we have refused to do the right channeling for the water. So when this happens, it turns often to disaster. So it's not even the flood itself, it is the way we have, prepared ourselves for it. It's the way we have failed to make our facilities.
Some of the states are doing something about that.
Some of the states are doing. Some of the states are doing, definitely. Of course, a state like Lagos has no choice. It has to do, because Lagos receives, the flood water from most parts of the, from up country, through, and of course, the states along the Niger Delta. They have no choice but to do, because they are going to be the worst hit. Whatever flooding you have upland comes down because it's heading for the Atlantic Ocean. So you find Lagos trying to decongest, clear the drains here and there, but still a lot of people dumping things in the drainages. There are still several drainages to be cleared, and I hope that the authorities in charge will buckle up the more. Because there's no point if we have achieved 90% of the job and then leave 10% to cause any disaster. It's like we've not done much.
You talked about a national climate change or response to climate change is a body, and that we don't have a body for that. Yeah. What about when it comes to emergencies like this? Yes, NEMA is there, but do you think that we have a plan? People know that, oh, I reside in a floodplain, so when it's time for me, when warnings like this are issued, I could be a threat. Do we have that kind of enlightenment around now?
Yeah, there are efforts, to enlighten people, particularly those who are along floodplains. But the whole climate change thing is not just about flooding. It's not about the rains. There are parts of the country where the rains don't come when they should, and it means a lot. For this part where we have the rains, what is the implication for agriculture? Because after the flood have gone, people have to eat. You know, so how does it affect our agriculture? There's no plan. You know, we don't have a national